When authors do battle, they do it with words. They throw a story back and forth, each trying to write the other into a corner. The results can be terrifying, or they can be legendary. The challenger, representing the villain this week, is...
Hi, I'm Simon Canton. The human race will fall to my ecological might.
And the defender, representing the hero, is...
Hello, I'm Dave Higgins, General Editor and Contributor to Fopocalypse and author of the soon-to-be-released An Unquiet Calm.
Defender, choose your genre.
I select the genre of science fiction.
Challenger, choose the hero.
The hero is Gulp Masterbath. He's a tall, muscular idiot. The only problem being that he thinks he's smarter than everyone around him. He will always go with his own idea, even if someone nearby has a better idea.
Defender, choose the time period.
The time is the near future, 2 years after alien ecologists have invaded Earth to save humanity from itself.
Challenger, choose the villain.
The villain is Quarto. He's an alien ecologist who wants everyone to do their part to help ease climate change. He wants to stop industry from polluting and poisoning the water, along with getting people to turn vegetarian and conserve energy.
Defender, what special skill does the hero have?
Although Gulp is an arrogant fool, he has a powerful protective streak. He will literally drag himself across broken bottles to protect women or children.
Challenger, what's happening at the start of our story?
Quarto has been assigned to the United States, where Gulp is the president. The Umbocos, the alien race, fought over who would get the US, and Quarto lost. Gulp made the previous Umboco have a nervous breakdown from his behaviour. Quarto arrives at the White House for his first meeting with Gulp. Quarto is sitting waiting in the Oval Office when he hears a roar outside. Quarto runs to the window. A giant jump jet is hovering over the rose garden. The jump jet lowers unsteadily towards the garden and then lands with a crash, flattening a row of beautiful roses. The cockpit to the jump jet opens and a tall, muscular man clambers out. He takes off his helmet and tosses it back into the still running jump jet. Quarto recognizes Gulp from his videos and pictures. Gulp jumps to the ground and strides over to the Oval Office, opening the door. He walks over to Quarto and holds out his hand. "I come in peace. Ha ha ha." Quarto takes Gulp's hand in his and winces as Gulp grips his hand too tightly. "Mr. President, I'm the new representative from the Umbocos. I'm here to ensure that you follow the rules set down in our agreement with your UN." Quarto is distracted by the roar of the jump jet out in the garden. "Shouldn't you turn off your plane?" "Nah," Gulp says. "Then it would take 5 minutes to warm it up. I'm only going to be here a couple of hours and then I'll need it again." "Mr. President, you're meant to be transitioning to electric power. Our scientists have given you a clean, powerful technology to use. The fossil fuels you're burning out there are only making our problems worse. I've heard that a new hurricane is devastating the southeast of your country," Quarto says. "Oh no, you're not one of those climate change nut bars, are you?" Gulp says, rolling his eyes. "The science isn't decided on that yet, you know. The only scientist left on your planet denying it is in an insane asylum," Quarto says. "Exactly. There are scientists on both sides," Gulp says. "Mr. President, if you don't agree to follow the rules that every other country on the planet is following, we will have to invade and force you to," Quarto says.
Do what the other countries are doing? Hell, the US of A is a leader, not a follower. Besides, them other countries are just a bunch of fork lickers. Quarto, unused both to Gulp's habit of inventing new insults that don't actually make sense, and his belief foreign relations means cousins from another state, adopts the fourth stance of query. Gulp takes the opportunity to kick Quarto between the legs, knocking him over. Unfortunately for Gulp, Umbocos are not very similar to humans, so it is not a disabling kick. However, the sound of Quarto's body hitting the floor does attract the attention of the Secret Service, who, sharing Gulp's shoot first, then shoot some more philosophy, assume Quarto must be up to something and open fire. Gulp laughs as Quarto is forced to dive out of the window to avoid being shot. That felt good, and was good for national security too. If those communists using zero-point energy stuff the Umboco were just giving away, it had to be a bad thing. He would stick to good old American oil and coal. He realised his detail while returning through the window. Little Green Man must have escaped. Although the Umboco weren't green, which just goes to show they were up to something, disguising themselves like that, it was his duty to tell people. He was still thinking about whether to announce their evil now or wait for one of those pansy-ass liberals to start moaning about how he was strip mining some animals, when Oscar Finnegan, his chief of staff, came running in. "What happened, Mr. President? That red-green bastard tried to tell me what to do. Threatened to invade if I didn't roll over, but the gulp ain't no handbagger. He's a ratter. No, I kicked him in the fundamentals, and then these fine American boys ran him off. You reckon we should do the announcement in the Rose Garden? Already got the jet, so we just get them writer boys to drag themselves out." Oscar pauses as several different trains wreck themselves in his brain, but long experience has helped him understand Gulp's metaphors. Silently agreeing that Gulp is definitely not the sort of dog you keep in a handbag, he starts considering the logistics of moving the press corps to the Rose Garden with the jet taking up most of it. Then the beginning catches up with his forebrain. Invade? You kicked him? Hell yeah. Telling someone you're going to attack's a Democrat's trick. A real man just belts them. I better call the Joint Chiefs and the UN, muttered Oscar. Maybe there was some way to straighten this out before the Mboko actually did invade. Good plan, shouts Gulp. We'll belt them again while they're still reading. Didn't the CIA say those cuckoo nutters had got rid of their missiles just because they weren't healthy? That means they can't shoot ours down. We can smack them in the kisser. You want to attack Switzerland? Don't everyone? Don't look like you sat in a lemon, Aussie. I only mean the bit with the greenies in, and we only use the small nukes. Oscar sighs as he starts the process of launching a nuclear attack at Geneva.
Quarto runs as fast as his 6 pseudopods will carry him, back to his solo ship parked in an energy-friendly parking spot. Waving it open, he hops inside. He hits the start button and lets the ship whisk him back to the Mboko headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. As the ship zips through the sky, Quarto considers the conundrum. The Mbokos have been watching humans for thousands of years. They built the pyramids, large arrows pointing at the sky, as a signal for the humans to come and meet them. Some jerks called the pharaohs took all the credit for those. Then they wrote instructions on how to build a spaceship in cornfields. The humans thought they were just an elaborate prank. Quarto assumes the 15th stance of confusion. He doesn't know how humans have even lasted so long. They choose to elect idiots like Gulp and then complain that their economies don't work. The ship starts its descent into Geneva, landing in front of the newly constructed Mboko headquarters. Quarto gets out and climbs up the nearby wall to the entrance on the 16th floor. Inside, other Mbokos are running around, seemingly panicked. Quarto stops a nearby Mboko. What's going on? The Americans have launched nukes at us, the other Mboko replied. They're wasting more energy than ever before. The chief says that we're all going to pull out at once. This planet is doomed. There's just no saving humans from themselves. Quarto adopts the first stance of swearing. That's plonko waste. I'm going to talk to the chief. He finds the nearest descension tunnel and climbs to the top of the building. Mbokos and humans have that in common at least. The bigwigs are always at the top. Chief Pling emerges from his office, his big wig wavering precariously on his head. Quarto, what did you do? Nothing, Chief, Quarto says. It's their president. He's a lunatic. We're out of here. The humans can just let their planet rot. There's no saving them. You haven't even given me a chance, Quarto says. Let me divert those nukes and then invade the United States. Once that Gulp man sees us reverting his troops, he'll have to submit. Chief Pling stares at Quarto for a long moment with his tentacle of examination, and then adopts the 6th stance of acceptance. All right, fine. You have my permission to revert 20 million American troops, but not a private more than that. Quarto grins, his brain temporarily falling onto the floor in happiness. In the control room, Quarto watches as the technician diverts the nukes up into space, into the Mboko nuclear recycling plant they have in orbit. He then leans into the microphone in front of him. All right, move in and let them have it. On all of the screens in front of them, Mboko soldiers move forward, crossing the border from Canada into America, revert guns held in front of them.
General Rausch crumples the piece of paper and turns to Gulp. Mr. President, NORAD reports our ICBMs have changed direction and are heading into space. And we have reports of Mboko soldiers crossing the border from Canada. Them low-down high-up sons of squids are stealing our nukes, rages Gulp. And you say these hockey-playing excuses for gun owners are just letting them invade? Don't they have any patriotic spirit? Canada isn't part of the United States, replies Oscar. Sure it is. Alaska's the northest state, and there it is, and there's Canada below it, so Canada's ours. Now someone give me some good news. Well, the Mboko have held just inside the border since they crossed. Yeehaw! Shouts Gulp, not afraid to adopt the language of other states if it is manly enough. I knew our boys would give them a whooping. Actually, Mr. President, The army aren't there yet. They seem to be in favour of environmental legislation, so they are each stopping to declare they aren't attempting to bring prescribed fruits and vegetables into the country. Inscribed vegetables? That one of those funny tomato things. Well, when do the army get there? The airborne will be deploying in 20 minutes. Unfortunately, we never anticipated being invaded by Canada, so we don't have a readiness plan. Not for over a century. Someone coughs in the shadows. Actually, we do. Who the gopher spit are you? That's Mr. Jones, says Oscar. He's a contractor with the Defence Department. What, CIA? Something like that, replies Jones. When the plan to defend against Canada was mothballed, no one specifically mothballed it being updated, so it was post-positively agracised as part of a proactive upscale leverage of intelligence actualities in a virtual schema reorientation. By deploying a pre-reactive material strategy from covert units within Alaska, we can initiate redacted, therefore redacting their redacted. He means we have a plan for whooping Canada, translates Oscar. Well, that's the kind of American thinking we need. Roush, give this man everything he needs to make it happen. Ozzy, bring me my flying jacket. Are you cold, Mr. President? Cold? No, I'm going to watch our boys show these Canadians they can't just go leaving the Union. Oscar quails inside and sends an aide for the President's jacket. Listening to Gulp talking about getting a good spot to watch the battle as he strides to the Rose Garden, Oscar begins to wonder if the Commander-in-Chief even understands modern warfare, let alone whatever crazy stuff the aliens might be bringing to the table. Unfortunately for the United States, freed of Gulp's commands, the Joint Chiefs and Mr. Jones quickly implement a strategy. Using the first generation of stealth deployment vehicles reverse-engineered from the Roswell crash, several chemical warheads are able to contaminate areas of outstanding natural beauty within Canada before the Umboco recalibrate their sensors. The Umboco invasion continues, but half of their forces are diverted to deal with the cleanup of the environment.
Quarto stands on top of a hill, surveying the devastated Canadian wilderness. Green slime coats every visible tree and bush, slowly melting them into sludge. The Canadian Prime Minister nudges Quarto and offers him some maple syrup-coated bacon. Quarto assumes the seventh stance of disgusted decline. They totally wrecked our countryside, eh? We're pledging the entire Canadian army to your cause, eh? The Prime Minister says. Good, Quarto says. He waves to a nearby Umboco, who brings over a stubby, gun-like device. We'll outfit your soldiers with these reverters. We need to get that idiot Gulp. Once he's gone, the rest of the Americans should fall in line. What does it do, eh? It reverts them back to the time when they were most happy, Quarto says. For most humans, that's when they were about 6 years old. That immense army on the other side of the border will become a bunch of children. Will their parents be that happy to see them turned into a bunch of 6-year-olds, eh? Do you have to say "a" at the end of every sentence? Isn't that just a stereotype? Quarto asks. And their parents will probably be happy that their children aren't going to die in some ridiculous war. All right, I'll make sure my soldiers get these reverting thingies. A, the Prime Minister says. Quarto nods and walks to his ship nearby. Taking off, he flies down to the border, where the American troops are resisting. They are driving massive Cadillac convertibles and Hummers in defiance of the environmental message of the Umbocos. Quarto adopts what he assumes is the first human stance of frustration, 2 middle fingers pointing at the American army. How can they be so obstinate? Looking towards the rear of the American army, Quarto sees something strange approaching. It almost looks like Umboco technology, but the humans shouldn't have that.
Ignoring both safety and noise pollution issues, Gulp hammers his jet towards the border at almost ground level, afterburner leaving a trail of forest fires behind him before slamming down just behind the lines. Leaping dramatically from the cockpit, he strides towards the command post. We got those cheese holders on the run, boys? Or do I have time for a beer? Mr. President, we weren't told to expect you. We're holding them for the moment, but there seems to be something odd going on. Some sort of floating giant egg turned up half an hour ago and started firing some sort of ray. Them Canadian traders got air support? Why haven't we blasted it? No, sir, it's blasting away the Umboco. Egg, you say? Don't sound very American to me. You sure it ain't a commie trick, boy? Better shoot at it to be sure. Yes, sir. Meanwhile, Quarto watches in disbelief as something that looks like a cross between an Umboco escape pod and one of humanity's primitive hovercraft continues to roll back the left flank of the attack. What is that horrible noise? I believe it's the Battle Hymn of the Republic, played on a theremin, replies the Canadian general assigned to him as liaison. But I'm more worried about that ray. It's only a modified contagion containment beam. Tell your men to purge their slough glands before advancing, and they will be fine. Slough glands. Yes. The beam induces an aligned flagellum response in bacteria, allowing us to gently herd them away from the area without having to harm them. So as long as... Quarto suddenly remembers the xenobiology briefing he received in transit to Earth, specifically human digestive symbiosis. He adopts the ninth stance of contrition. I am sorry, General. I forgot how primitive your species' energy release process is. Let the Umboko hold back the craft. Focus your people on the right side. Resettling his medium conflict amelioration wig, Quarto heads for the nearest Umboko transport. If he is lucky, the Americans have not replicated all the technology of the escape pod. If he can induce the right resonance, he should be able to disable their crude power supply. Gulp pauses, silhouetted, at the top of a small rise. A lieutenant jogs over and tries to drag him into cover. Don't panic, soldier. Them fish-eating sons of trees ain't going to shoot old Gulp. What's the situation? We're being pushed back. They seem to have reinforcements, and we had to stop the barrage when we noticed there were children on the battlefield. Children? Those 8-legged Canadian tea drinkers are using children? Gulp starts running towards the battle. This needs the personal touch. Seeing the President launching a single-handed charge through the lines, the Lieutenant quickly leads his men in pursuit, gathering as many other units as he can in a futile attempt to keep him safe. Gulp runs past the line of Hummers and strides through the crossing streams of reverters and bullets up to the nearest 6-year-old former soldier. Seeing they're in the uniform of the United States, he salutes with flag. "You're a funny man," giggles one of the children. "What are you doing here, Sonny?" The child branches an M16. "Playing cowboys." "That's a fine gun, but I get you like ice cream better." The child nods solemnly. "You lend me your gun and you can have some ice cream. Just go that way. The rest of you can have some too." Clutching his new toy, Gulp advances towards the enemy, not noticing the soldiers being reverted around him. Blinking? Quarto checks the report again. Gulp seems to have taken the field himself. This might be the chance to end it all without further unpleasantness. Abandoning his search for a phase aggregator, he orders the nearest troops to focus their fire on Gulp. Beam after beam strikes Gulp, but, unfortunately for Quarto, Gulp is not given to introspection or regrets. Whatever he is doing at the moment is usually the happiest moment of his life, and the beams only revert him a few moments to the moment he led the charge.
"It's not working," Quarto calls to the nearest Umboko troops. "Unless we can deal with Gulp, they'll just send more soldiers." The troops near Quarto shrug back. They don't know what to do either. Holding his wig to his head, Quarto dashes forward, heading straight for Gulp. The American president is firing randomly at the Umbokos. The bullets sticking to them are being picked off for recycling. Quarto stops in front of the president, who kicks Quarto between the pseudopods. "Mr. President, what is any of this accomplishing?" Quarto asks, trying not to fall over. "We're turning all of your soldiers into 6-year-olds, and your guns can't even hurt us." As an answer, Gulp spins his M16, pointing the barrel directly at Quarto's face. He pulls the trigger. "Yee-haw! Take that, you call me no good, Nick." Quarto sighs and waits for the gun to run out of ammo. He picks the bullets from his face and puts them into his pocket for recycling later. "All right, I've had just about enough of this. If you don't stop, we're going to leave." "Fine, leave," Gulp says. "That's what I've been trying to get you to do all along." A light bulb explodes over Quarto's head. He could almost kick himself for not having thought of it sooner. "I guess we'll have to see if the Democrats want our campaign contributions instead." Quarto turns and walks away from Gulp. He only makes it 3 paces. "Wait!" Gulp calls. "Wait, I didn't know you were looking to invest in a political campaign. Come back here. I've got a bottle of scotch with your name on it."
Quarto swills the amber liquid around the glass. Apparently not all of Gulp's obsessions are unpleasant. Ethanol, plant phenols, water, yet somehow the combination is more than just chemistry. And Gulp doesn't seem quite so bad when he isn't talking about the environment. Then you power through and touchdown! Sounds very exciting, and much like Ordum Remtar, one of the favourite games of my people. Except in Ordum Remtar, we do not keep stopping and do not wear the armour. Well, your people probably don't play hard enough to need it. Hell, you're more intellectual than a polecat and a sock drawer. This was Gulp being friendly to a donor? No wonder no one wanted this backwards country. Maybe it would help if you responded in kind. On the contrary, Ordum Remtar is very violent. We can control our impulses, so we seem calm to you, but on the fields of Remtar we allow ourselves to experience them to the full. Cowardly? You saying Americans are no better than some sort of European? Quarto hastily takes a sip of whiskey to cover the desire to point out that becoming European would be a step up. Apparently he has misjudged this manly bonding ritual. He should try to calm him down again. I don't think America is like Europe at all. I can't think of anywhere in Europe that would have you as leader. Mighty fine of you to say so. Gulp smacks Quarto hard on the arm, nearly knocking him out of the chair. You're all right for a squid. Realising Gulp uses physical violence for positive as well as negative social interaction, Quarto has another idea. Waiting until Gulp has settled back in his seat, he lashes out as hard as he can, propelling Gulp out of his chair, across the room and into a wall. You're not without positive qualities either. The doors to the Oval Office burst open and men in black suits rush in. Seeing Quarto seated near the crumpled body of the president, they make Gulp crowd by immediately resorting to a hail of gunfire. Woozy from the combination of whiskey and bouncing off a wall, Gulp washes the pretty ripples as the bullets stick to Quarto. Magazines expended, the Secret Service grab for Quarto. Adopting the stance of resolute individuality, Quarto slips free. After a few minutes of watching the brawl, Gulp remembers he is still on the floor and gets back up. "It's okay, boys. We're just goofing around. Say, Quarto, you got a hook like an Alaskan lumberjack. Might have misjudged you lot. Let's sort this out the easy way." "That would be a reasonable decision. What do you propose?" "We'll take your gift of free energy and them other doohickeys on one condition." Gulp sways slightly and collapses into a chair. Quarto begins to feel better. Obviously, the manly bonding ritual works. The people of America operate to respect hierarchy, so Gulp probably wanted to pretend the arrangement was his ideas. "We play for it, Squiddy." "What?" "This sort of mortar thing. Play a game of that. You win, we take all your stuff. I win, you donate to my campaign anyway, and stop bothering me about all the green crap. Less you're yellow." Quarto gulps. Ordum Remtar is dangerous. It would take years to train a human team how to play without the risk of dying. But this is the closest to compromise any of his people have reached with the Americans. What to do?
Quarto watches Gulp smear grease all over his naked body. He's already told Gulp that being naked isn't necessary, but Gulp insisted. "Are you sure you understand the rules, Mr. President?" Gulp nods. "I got it, boy. Whoever holds on to this Flarmplat thing the longest wins. And the more of your players holding it, the more points you get," Quarto says, waving to the 4 naked Secret Service agents behind the president. Naked other than their sunglasses, which seem to be permanently attached to their faces. "And that you get to hit anyone you want," Gulp says enthusiastically. Quarto had a feeling that Gulp would like that bit. "All right, it's time to go to the stadium, Mr. President." Quarto leads Gulp and the 4 agents into the stadium. Gulp has commandeered a football stadium for the event, and the stands are filled with roaring humans and quiet Mbokos. The field in the centre of the stadium has been filled with obstacles, towers, trenches, hurdles and fire pits. Quarto's team are waiting near the entrance to the stadium. All of them have been selected for their size. Gulp laughs. "Your team are tiny." "Tiny Mbokos are faster," Quarto says patiently. He waves to his team, who zip around the nearest obstacle, a large tower. They return after a fraction of a second. "Wow," Gulp says. "Those boys sure are fast." "Are you ready, Mr. President?" Quarto asks. "Let's get it on," Gulp calls. Quarto waves a pseudopod at the ship suspended above the stadium, and a Flarmplat is lowered into the centre of the clustered field. The Flarmplat is the size of an earth bull, but is far more aggressive. It has 30 pseudopods that fan out under a massive spiked shell. A giant bony tail whips around behind the Flarmplat, whistling through the air. "Is that a Flarm play?" Gulp asks with a gulp. "Yes, Mr. President," Quarto says, adopting the 13th stance of smug satisfaction. "How are we meant to hold on to that?" Gulp asks. "With the suction cups at the end of your pseudopods," Quart says, speeding away.
Gulp huddles with his team for a moment, then they break. Quarto watches in surprise as the Secret Servicemen lift Gulp and race through the obstacles. Thinking back to the hour he spent watching US television to better understand them, he suddenly remembers that when they aren't shooting at things, they run alongside primitive petrol vehicles and bundle the president to safety. Maybe this isn't going to be the embarrassingly easy victory he hoped. Gulp shouts out in manly joy, mixing his regions again. The grease is making this more difficult, but this is going to be just like high school wrestling. Then they reach the Flannery Doodah, and it starts going wrong. Every time one of his team manages to find something they can hold on to well enough not to slide straight off, one of the Mboko contemptuously pokes them free. On the bright side, The Umboco were focused on knocking the men flat in the most embarrassing way possible rather than hanging on, so were also not scoring. After a couple of minutes, Gulp realises this is harder than the time he opened the rodeo. One of his detail manages to hang on for a few seconds by using a piece of gum as glue, but lost more of its flavour when he got knocked into a flame pit. After a moment, Gulp considers just focusing on stopping the Umboco scoring, but the sight of the screaming children and women in the audience reminds him that he is an American, not some sort of wussy liberal, and Americans win. Smack 'em around, boys, I need to think about this. The Umboco are lightning fast, but they are constrained by the need for someone to actually grab the Flamme-Platte at some point, so the Secret Service quickly adopt a strategy of staying near it and smacking anyone who comes close. Unfortunately, their training makes them automatically break formation every time Gulp is in danger. With the Umboco starting to realise it is time to begin scoring rather than showboating, even Gulp realises he needs a new plan. But what? The little tentacle sons of pie tins are faster than a suicide bomber on a Friday. Suicide bombers. This isn't just a game, this is about protecting children from the dangers of small cars. Stopping children having to skimp their families because they can't fit everything in a foreign car. If foreigners are prepared to die for their crazy countries, then how effective will it be when a real man does it? It's Alamo time, boys! Keep them wrigglers off me! Gulp calls on all the benefits of his sports scholarship and blitzes the Flamme-Platte. Stunned, it does not immediately sweep him away. Leaping high, Gulp opens his arms wide and slams into the spikes, impaling himself through the gut. The Flamme-Platte bucks, sending jolts of agony through him, but he merely clenches his stomach muscles harder. The Secret Service, more used to Gulp's insanity than the more peaceful Umboco, recover first and gang up on the stunned aliens. And the crowd goes wild! Well, the American half, anyway. The Umboco half silently adopts various stances. Channeling their leader's utter lack of self-preservation, the Secret Service beat the Umboco back over and over again. But the unequal numbers and experience finally tell, and Quarto bursts through their cordon. The game is almost over, but if he can stay on till the end, he can still win it for the Umboco. Unfortunately, emotions heightened by the game, he makes the mistake of clinging near to Gulp so he can see his face when he loses, which leaves him somewhat surprised when Gulp reaches even deeper into the soul to protect the right of American children to leave the air conditioning running and twists round on the spike. Using the impressive jaw that won him the All-State Bubblegum champion and most likely to star in a movie, Gulp clamps down on the nearest pseudopod and tears. Quarto instinctively adopts the stance of dispute resolution and tumbles beneath the Flamme-Platte. And the buzzer goes. Gulp's vision starts to dim. He fights against the hands trying to pull him free. Eventually, the Secret Service managed to get him to safety. And America is free to consume conspicuously.
Who do you think won the battle? Vote for a winner in the comments below.